How often have you done something because everyone expects you to? Probably at least once a day, if not more, right? While doing what's expected is part of life, it's another trap for B2B companies when it comes to solid, authentic brand development. Situations come up that force companies to cut and paste together a brand strategy of some kind. They recognize that having a brand and brand consistency are important, and they are, but it's too hard for them to just invest enough thought, time, or money into figuring it all out, what the brand actually is. Arbitrary branding is when the brand is defined because of expectation, making a random decision and then sticking with it. What makes a decision random is that there is no ultimate explanation or story behind it. It simply reflects a pure act of will by the leadership, or maybe the marketing team, or maybe even an intern tasked with designing a logo. If you ask, well, why? There is no real answer. Core elements which compose a brand can't be invented or made up or improvised on the spot. These core elements are your brand purpose, your brand expression, your brand relationships, and your brand story. These 4 building blocks of a brand are not just arbitrary. They can't just be made up. They need to be discovered. Today, we're going to tackle the first 2 pitfalls of arbitrary branding: pretentiousness and randomness. So first, you can't invent a purpose, and it's pretentious to try. Your purpose is something objective and enduring, a real part of what makes your company continue to exist. Your company's underlying unifying purpose has real weight and substance. It explains how you choose to operate in the present and where you want to head in the future. Yet we've seen so many companies who try to make up their purpose out of thin air. They don't have a lot of time to put thought into it. They're too busy selling. Inventing a purpose is just a step to giving a sales pitch or getting some investment or just getting back to business. Brands with arbitrary purposes are everywhere. It's the vague statement that doesn't quite mean anything, or the repetition of trendy buzzwords. It's the noble idea that nobody follows through on, or the lofty vision irrelevant to the everyday. It's the company which says it exists to be the greatest at what we do. An arbitrary purpose is a pretend purpose. No one actually believes in it, and so no one follows it because no one really cares. Here's the thing. Your organization's purpose isn't invented. It has to be discovered. You have to search the world around you and figure out why it needs your company distinctly as it is. Why does responding to your customers' needs motivate you and your whole organization? You have to observe not only your current passions, but your enduring cares as they have been ongoing behavior over your entire history. Coming to a shared understanding of your organization's purpose takes time. It takes reflection and introspection, and even some awkward and uncomfortable conversations. It might even cause some drama. That might sound intimidating, but it is healthy because it is important. Until you define your aims, you are going to be aimless. You can't delegate it all to a consultant, a committee, or the loudest person in the room. Your company can do some things well, and some things not so well. Of those it does well, there are some things it just has to do as part of operating, and some things you actually exist to do. Why is your team driven to serve your customers? Why do your customers need you? Looking for your purpose in your why is the place to discover it. All right, so that was point number 1. Point number 2, brand expression isn't random. Just like you can't invent your brand's purpose, you can't randomly make up the way your brand expresses itself. Or rather, you can, but it's going to impact your business in ways you never imagined. Imagine that you arbitrarily chose that your colors are red or blue or yellow-green or whatever, because that's a color that you like, or your mom likes it, or it's a color that looks different from the competition. No one will stop you from picking a color that way. Colors are extremely memorable though, and every culture has long-standing associations with each color. The associations are at least partly cultural, like red and blue in American political culture is reversed in the United Kingdom, and the white of an English wedding is the color for mourning in a Chinese funeral. The associations may also be partly biological, like the calming effect of a light blue sky and green grass, or all the associations we have with the darkness of the night sky. So when you spin the color wheel and you land on orange as your company color, you've determined a large part of how people are going to remember and think about you for the remainder of your company's lifespan. And once you've set your color scheme, changing it isn't easy. Imagine if Coca-Cola tried to pivot to purple. And that's just a color. All of the other aspects of your brand's expression are going to impact how people inside and outside your company think of its identity. So things like your name, your logo, your writing style, the images that you choose, the fonts you use, all of the style choices. If it doesn't match your core identity, it will either produce a kind of dissonance that is a constant drain and drag on your company, or it will slowly shift the culture and values of your company to match those arbitrary choices that you made. Rolling the dice now, or picking something cute and silly that your sister's boyfriend's niece suggested, has a definite thrill to it. But if your identity doesn't guide your choices, those choices will guide your identity for years to come. So to sum up, your brand identity is not your brand expression. Many people misidentify their brand identity with their brand expression. They think that their brand is just their brand expression, like your logo and colors. And since they can make an arbitrary choice to settle their brand expression, they can make an arbitrary choice that defines their entire brand identity. That's a mistake. Your brand is not invented. It is born. People don't invent themselves, and brands are born out of relationships between people and the purpose which organizes them together. Your brand already exists before you start to choose how you want to represent it. Your brand expression is an attempt to communicate that brand identity outwardly, and it is how other people learn to recognize your brand identity. It should be carefully and creatively crafted to fit the reality of who you are. Back when companies were listed alphabetically in the phone book, one tactic companies used was naming themselves AAA, like AAA Painting or AAA Plumbing. That tactic, of course, died off with the internet because AAA was an arbitrary and meaningless choice. Arbitrary choices can be arbitrarily changed just as easily as if they were first established. Meaningful choices endure. There's a lot more to learn, so I recommend you head over to our website at resoundcreative.com and use our free videos, tools, and self-assessments to help you in your branding process. And if you're looking for one-on-one help, ask about our professional branding services to help B2B companies move past arbitrary branding and into a coherent, meaningful brand identity. And don't forget, you are remarkable.